April 2021. A chilling atmosphere enveloped the abandoned power plant in Los Gatos, more than 15 miles from downtown San Jose, California. Light from the San Jose forensics teams, ground-penetrating radar pierced through decades-thick dust, illuminating something no one ever thought would be found. Central. "I need the excavation team to the Los Gatos plant now." The investigator's voice crackled over the radio, trembling slightly but resolute. What began as a routine inventory of old evidence in a records digitization program had become something entirely different. Something that would answer questions haunting San Jose for 66 years. Beneath the cracked concrete, they discovered a shallow grave. Inside was a green sweater, a single shoe, and rotted jute rope. Nearby, small human bone fragments mixed in the damp soil. Those remains were identified as belonging to Billy Parker, the 15-year-old teenager who vanished one September night in 1955. For nearly 7 decades, Billy's disappearance was just an unsolved question mark. He left the Lincoln High School dance, saying he would walk home, and never arrived. The next day, police only found his sweater near the stadium fence. No blood, no traces, no witnesses. A large-scale search was launched, with dozens of volunteers, police, and students participating. But after 3 weeks, all efforts were futile. Case file #5548. A was closed in 1956 and filed under cold case. For the next 65 years, no one reopened that box. In 2021, during an archive review, technician Maria Delgado discovered a mislabeled evidence envelope. Inside was the original green sweater and jute rope, still sealed with the signature of Lieutenant Thomas Reed, the initial investigator. The samples were sent to the Sacramento Forensics Lab, and just weeks later, DNA results shook the entire state of California. DNA extracted from the rope matched the family profile of Edward Brown, who had been questioned in the original 1955 investigation. When summoned, Brown confessed that night he, Walter Sloan, and Michael Ferrer intended to scare Billy, tied his hands, and locked him in the trunk. When they returned, Billy was dead. They buried his body behind the Los Gatos power plant, where the forensics team had just excavated. Before continuing this shocking story, take a second to hit subscribe and like this video. Your support helps us bring forgotten cases back to light and ensures you don't miss any stories in the future. The Los Gatos discovery wasn't just the end of a missing person case. It was the first domino in a chain of events that would expose secrets buried for over half a century. When authorities finally made the arrests, they discovered the perpetrator wasn't a stranger, but a familiar San Jose resident, someone who had lived among them for 66 years, carrying that horrific secret. The Billy Parker case isn't just a mystery solved, it's proof of the persistence of those who never stop searching, of detectives who refuse to let files gather dust, and of the power of modern forensics that gives voice to victims silenced for too long. Tonight, we'll retrace the events of September 1955, follow the decades-long investigation, and witness the stunning breakthrough that brought closure to one of America's coldest and most mysterious cases. This is a story of loss, persistence, deception, and ultimately, justice delayed, but not denied. September 1955, San Jose was still a small, peaceful city nestled in the Santa Clara Valley, where new neighborhoods sprang up amid orchards and the first electronics manufacturing shops. Residents' lives revolved around church, school, and weekend gatherings. Billy Parker, 15 years old, was a Lincoln High student, the only son of an ordinary working-class family in the Willow Glen neighborhood. He was loved by friends and teachers for being gentle, liking to fix radios, and always carrying a small notebook with his favorite song lyrics. On Saturday night, Billy was allowed to attend the school dance at the Knights of Columbus Hall on Market Street, an event considered the most exciting of the year for local teens. The hall lights blazed, swing music mixed with the laughter of hundreds of teenagers in white shirts and layered puffy skirts. Billy arrived with a few classmates, happily joining games and dancing to the first few songs. As the party wound down, around 11 o'clock, many saw him leave the hall, wearing his green sweater, holding a folded ticket, still smiling and waving goodbye to someone. A few friends said he planned to walk home since it wasn't far. After that, no one saw Billy again. When the Parker home clock neared midnight and their son still wasn't back, his mother stepped onto the porch, looking down the empty street amid the chirping insects. His father drove around the neighborhood, along the road to the school, past the old stadium and the corner store where Billy often stopped for soda, but everything was silent. Phone calls to friends' houses yielded no information. Both began fearing the worst had happened, but still held hope their son had just stopped somewhere and would return. As the night grew late, unable to wait longer, they decided to call the San Jose Police Department to report their son missing. On the other end of the line, the night dispatcher's tired voice cut through the quiet, asking them to stay calm and provide the necessary details. The call was logged in the duty book near dawn, marking the official report of the disappearance. Lieutenant Thomas Reed, 32 years old, in charge of the night shift at the Central Patrol Unit, was the first to respond. He had been in the force for nearly 10 years, used to petty thefts, accidents or bar fights, but a boy vanishing in the quiet residential Willow Glen area caught his special attention. Reed called back to confirm with the family, asking them to recount the last time they saw their son and the route Billy might have walked home. In the initial report, he noted, missing under unclear circumstances, age 15, Lincoln High student, likelihood of runaway low. Per department rules, the case would only be classified urgent if there were signs of immediate danger, but Reed decided not to wait the standard 24 hours. He requested 2 other officers join him at the Parker home to meet the reporters in person. When they arrived, the wall clock showed nearly 3 in the morning. The small house was still lit, Mrs. Parker standing on the porch with a cold, wet cloth in hand, while Mr. Parker opened the door, looking exhausted from worry. Reed introduced himself, asked permission to take statements. He questioned every detail: what time Billy left home, what he was wearing, what he carried, if friends were with him, which route he usually took. Mr. Parker said his son had only a few dollars in change, no bicycle, no habit of staying out late. Reed requested the most recent photo of Billy, then opened his notebook to sketch the route from the Knights of Columbus Hall to the Parker home. The distance was short, no more than 2 kilometers, mostly through residential areas and the Lincoln Stadium. His note in the report: weather light rain, low visibility, no notable traffic. After finishing the questions, Reed observed the tidy living room, where Billy's school bag was still open and a glass of milk on the table had gone cold. He sensed clearly this wasn't like typical runaway cases. Before leaving, he reassured the family that police would begin searching at first light. Stepping back onto the porch, the night wind was biting, streets empty, yellow streetlights casting on the wet pavement. Reed paused to look around for a long moment, trying to picture the path the boy had taken and what could have happened in that brief time. Back in the patrol car, he added the final line to the report: no signs of voluntary departure. Recommend search at dawn. As dawn broke, Lieutenant Reed was at the scene with a group of police and city fire department personnel. He divided the search area into small sectors, starting from the Knights of Columbus Hall, extending to Willow Glen, the route Billy usually walked home. Each team was assigned a segment equipped with flashlights, topographic maps, and radios. The police department called for community support, and within hours, over 50 volunteers, including Lincoln teachers and students, showed up to join. They split into groups, combing both sides of the road, side alleys, empty lots, and areas around the old stadium. Fire units used specialized vehicles to sweep floodlights along drainage ditches, while patrol officers checked parking areas and embankments near the small creek behind the church. Reed monitored all incoming reports, continuously marking checked locations on the map. The air was still misty, ground damp, many shoe prints and tire tracks faintly imprinted on the soft earth. Mid-morning, an officer radioed him. While searching behind the Lincoln Stadium, they found a suspicious item right by the chain-link fence. It was a green sweater, caked in mud and grass, matching the family's description. Reed rushed to the spot, ordered caution tape erected, and all activity halted in the area. He examined the sweater closely, one sleeve torn, collar with a few stray threads, no visible blood stains. On the label was handwritten embroidery in faded blue ink, readable as B. Parker. The sweater was carefully placed in a brown paper bag, sealed, and labeled as the case's first evidence item. Reed had photos taken, measured the distance from the fence to the main road, noted wind direction and morning sunlight position for later comparison. He ordered the search radius expanded by 200 meters, hoping for more traces or items. Volunteer and police groups continued scanning, flipping grass clumps, checking under bushes and ditches, but found nothing beyond a few bottles and scraps of paper. No one recalled seeing Billy pass through the area the previous night. By noon, Reed gathered the team, announced a temporary halt to compile results. He noted in the report, evidence recovered, green sweater, highly likely victims, time and reason left undetermined. No direct witnesses. Everyone left the area in silence, only a few officers remaining to guard the fenced-off scene. Reed stood looking at the road stretching from the stadium toward the residential area, pondering the short distance the boy had traveled and the unusual void between those 2 points, where Billy Parker seemed to vanish without leaving any other trace. Immediately after the area around Lincoln Stadium was cordoned off, Lieutenant Reed called the station requesting the crime scene unit for support. About an hour later, the forensics unit's specialized vehicle pulled up to the fence, carrying crates of measuring tools and a 35mm film camera. 4 technicians began documenting every detail within the marked zone. They precisely measured the sweater's position relative to the fence edge and the nearest road, noting wind direction, ground condition, mud moisture, and midday light levels. Reed stood watching, directing panoramic shots from 4 different angles, then close-ups of each item, numbered sequentially on a sketch map. After completing photography, the team used tape measures and stakes to mark a 10-meter radius around the discovery point, scanning the ground for additional evidence. They quickly found several notable items: a 20-centimeter piece of jute rope mixed in the weeds, fibers frayed and caked with mud. A broken glass soda bottle, body still coated in sand and moss, and 3 faint shoe prints in the damp soil, 2 sizes larger than Billy's. Everything was logged in the scene notebook, with relative coordinates in a north-south orientation. Reed examined each item, confirming the area was not a common thoroughfare due to the fence and only accessible from behind the stadium. He concluded someone likely dragged Billy through here or hid in the dark. After full photography, technicians gloved up, placed each sample in separate paper bags, sealed, signed, and dated per department protocol. Each bag was hand-labeled in black ink. Evidence: Billy Parker missing person. 1955. Reed did a final check before the bags were loaded into the vehicle. He ordered immediate transfer to the San Jose Police Department's central storage, along with a preliminary report. In the summary log, Reed wrote, primary evidence blue-green sweater mud-soiled, secondary jute rope, broken soda bottle, shoe prints not matching victim size. Scene sealed, no clear signs of struggle, suspected forced removal. At the report's end, he signed and requested an official case number. That same day, the administrative office issued file hash 5548A noted, missing juvenile, possible abduction. Storage opened the file, created a dedicated section for original evidence, to be analyzed when technology allowed. As the tech team packed up, Reed lingered by the stadium fence, observing the newly marked marshy ground. He added a few personal notes: southwest wind, fresh mud, deep shoe prints, indicating the person stood there shortly before the rain stopped. On the grass remained a small drag mark toward the road behind the stadium. He bent down, examining soil stuck to the fence base, wondering if this was the abduction's start or just a temporary stop. As the sun dipped west, the scene was cleared and taped off. All evidence was sealed and transported to the station that day. In his end-of-shift report to superiors, Reed concluded briefly, based on scene, Initial assessment suggests victim forcibly removed from area via motor vehicle. Recommend expanding search radius 5 miles south. The next morning, Lieutenant Reed returned to the Knights of Columbus Hall, where the dance had taken place before Billy vanished. He wanted to verify everyone present that night and reconstruct the exact timeline. The hall manager, a middle-aged man named James Holloway, said the event ended around 10:30. He was the last to leave the ballroom, turning off lights and locking the main door. He reported no incidents or fights, just a few students lingering outside chatting. Reed asked to see the sign-in log at the reception desk, where attendees registered names and paid entry. The list had over 200 names, mostly Lincoln High students and some guests from nearby schools. Reed took a copy back to the station for cross-referencing. He also interviewed the band, a four-piece from Fremont, who said they left right after the final song, noticing nothing unusual except a few young men talking in the parking lot. When pressed, one band member recalled seeing a group of 4, including a boy in a green sweater, matching Billy Parker's clothing. The boy stood near a dark-colored car, talking with 3 older teens. Reed logged the statement and rechecked the parking area, where old oil stains and tire marks remained on the asphalt. By afternoon, he contacted Lincoln High for the dance attendee list and invited several of Billy's classmates to headquarters. A female student named Carol Atkins said before leaving she saw Billy talking with 3 unfamiliar but familiar young men having attended school together years earlier. She recalled one named Walter Sloan, who had left the previous year. Another student confirmed Sloan was with Michael Ferrer and Edward Brown, all 3 often hanging out at a repair shop south of town. The matching statements caught Reed's attention. He checked residency records and confirmed all 3 lived within 3 miles of Billy's home. Sloan, 17, was apprenticing as a mechanic. Ferrer, 16, worked part-time at a grocery. Brown, 17, son of a postal worker. Reed noted, 3 subjects known to victim present at same time at Hall need to verify departure route. He sent officers to the repair shop Sloan frequented, confirming he attended the dance with his 2 friends. The owner recalled them, leaving work around 8 and taking an old dark Chevrolet. All details matched witness descriptions at the hall. By evening, Reed returned to the office, organizing statements and typing the report. In the conclusion, he wrote briefly, "Witnesses at scene confirm victim last seen with local youths Walter Sloan, Michael Ferrer, and Edward Brown. Recommend summoning group for interrogation to clarify timeline and travel route on night of incident." The very next day, Lieutenant Reed signed summons for the 3 young men identified as the last to speak with Billy Parker at the hall. Walter Sloan, Michael Ferrer, and Edward Brown all appeared at the San Jose Police Headquarters that morning to give statements. Reed arranged separate interrogations to prevent them from comparing notes. The first was Walter Sloan, 17, tall, short-haired, appearing confident and unafraid. Sloan stated that night he went with Ferrer and Brown to the dance, stayed a while, then left the hall around 10:30. In the parking lot, Sloan said he saw Billy near the gate, looking like he was searching for someone. He asked for a ride a few blocks. Sloan recounted, "I agreed since we were going the same way." Reed asked specifically where they dropped Billy off. Sloan vaguely replied around the park area. He insisted there was no conflict or argument, that Billy left the car normally. Reed noted Sloan's statement time, cross-referencing with hall witnesses, showed the times didn't fully match. The second was Michael Ferrer, younger, visibly nervous entering the room. Ferrer confirmed going with Sloan and Brown, but said they left later, around 11. Asked about Billy, he quickly said he only remembered a few casual words and wasn't sure if the boy got in the car. Reed asked about Sloan's Chevrolet. Ferrer nodded. It was dark-colored, long hood, didn't recall the plate. When asked why his time differed from Sloan's, Ferrer stammered, "I didn't check the clock." Reed flagged this inconsistency. The last was Edward Brown, calmer than the others, answering briefly. Brown said he didn't know Billy, only by sight from school friends. Asked about the dance night. Brown said he left early, around 10, and didn't recall seeing Billy. Reed cross-checked, finding Brown's departure earlier than Sloan and Ferrer claimed. He asked twice. Brown stuck to his answer. All three denied any fight or argument with the victim. After interrogations, Reed had Sloan's dark Chevrolet Impala checked, the car said to have given Billy a ride. It was brought to the department lot, fully photographed inside, seats, floor, and trunk inspected. No blood or suspicious items, only a meter-plus length of jute rope coiled in the trunk, same color and material as the stadium sample. It was sealed and sent to Tech for analysis. When Reed asked Sloan about the rope, he said it was for tying loads when hauling materials and didn't remember where it came from. End of day, Reed compiled the 3 interrogation reports. He noted inconsistencies. Sloan said left at 10:30, Ferrer 11, Brown 10. No one pinpointed the drop-off. Accounts of the ride differed. In his report to superiors, Reed wrote, 3 subjects last in contact with victim. No direct evidence of crime, but statements inconsistent and matching evidence type found at scene. Recommend continued surveillance and route verification for the group. After interrogations, Lieutenant Reed presented a proposal to expand the search to command. Inconsistent statements from the young men convinced him Billy may have left the Hall area in a different direction than his usual route home. Using city topographic maps and weather reports, he identified Almaden Hills and the old Los Gatos power plant as key check areas. Both lay south, about 8 miles from downtown, with many dirt paths and little-traveled truck roads. The following week, a large-scale search was launched. Over 60 police, fire personnel, and volunteers were mobilized. Reed divided the area into grid sections on the map, numbered sequentially, assigned to teams. Each group had flashlights, walkie-talkies, compasses, and basic digging tools. Police trucks carried supplies for temporary tents during the extended operation. First morning, teams focused on the road up Almaden Hills, steep terrain, slippery red soil, thick weeds. One group followed old miner trails, another the dry creek through lowlands. Reed led the central team, scanning sparse woods beside the main road. Every small find, bottles, cloth scraps, tire tracks, was logged, photographed, sent to the temporary station for comparison. All were ordinary litter or unrelated old marks. Second week, the search extended to the abandoned Los Gatos power plant. The facility operated during World War II, shut down years ago, isolated in the valley. Collapsed warehouses, tanks, cracked concrete made checking difficult. Teams used old utility maps to locate pipes and technical pits. They shovel-tested soft soil spots, checked drains, dry wells, industrial dump areas. Each day, Reed compiled data at shift end, marking cleared zones on the map. He stressed noting roads wide enough for cars, as any vehicle involvement could mean a stop or hiding spot. But after days of surveying, results were empty. No matching evidence to Billy Parker, no body, no suspicious vehicle signs. A few locals questioned, said they saw no car lights or heard strange noises that night. Reed logged all and reported Almaden and Los Gatos areas. Check complete, no physical signs or new evidence. By the third weekend, search teams were exhausted, operational funds low. The department had to scale back, keeping a small unit to follow scattered public tips. Reed stood on the dirt road overlooking Los Gatos Valley, late light on the old plant roofs. 3 weeks of continuous searching, dozens of miles turned over, hundreds of man-hours, yet nothing but heavy silence. In his final summary to the station, he wrote briefly, "Search operation concluded. No results. Recommend shifting focus to evidence analysis and monitoring related subjects." With the official search closed, Lieutenant Reed returned to the station with stacks of reports, maps, and scene photos. He spent days reorganizing all data from the 3 weeks, seeking any link between scattered evidence and witness statements. The composite report showed a picture still full of gaps. No signs Billy Parker ran away voluntarily, no money taken, no packed bag, no note, and per teachers and friends, no distress or conflicts. No specific proof a crime occurred. Recovered evidence, sweater, rope piece, shoe prints, broken soda bottle, was speculative, not directly linking any suspect. Testing the rope from Walter Sloan's car found no origin. Both pieces matched material, but common jute sold at most local hardware stores, not conclusive. Search area topography showed no fresh digs or suspicious spots. In his summary to the police chief, Reed outlined 3 possible scenarios. First, abduction. His priority due to scene traces, suggesting third-party involvement. Strange prints and rope indicated contact, but lacked proof of violence or force. Second, accident. Billy may have met misfortune en route, fallen in a drain, or hit by a car with the driver fleeing in panic. But no accident traces or damaged vehicles in the search area. No reports of swerving that night. Third, concealed body. Mentioned last, possibly died of undetermined cause with remains hidden farther out, but Almaden and Los Gatos surveys yielded nothing. Reed analyzed each, cross-referencing facts, then wrote in the interim conclusion, insufficient basis to confirm criminal act, but based on signs, purposeful abduction of victim is most likely. He added the trio Sloan, Ferrer, and Brown needed monitoring due to inconsistent statements. The report went to the Santa Clara County DA's office for opinion, but prosecutors said not enough for criminal charges. The case stayed open investigation, allowing new leads. Reed reviewed the entire file, from the family's missing person report to evidence inventory, then closed the thick hardbound folder, labeled #5548A, missing juvenile, investigation pending. In personal notes, he wrote briefly, signs suggest third-party intervention. However, no body, no witnesses, no direct evidence. Case suspended until new data. By mid-1956, after months with no further leads, Billy Parker's disappearance was officially reclassified pending investigation, missing juvenile. Police and community efforts all stopped at the same point. No witnesses, no body, no new evidence. Lieutenant Thomas Reed completed the final composite report, over 200 pages, including all interview transcripts, search maps, evidence catalog, and lab results. In the conclusion, he wrote, insufficient evidence for prosecution. Victim location undetermined. Existing data does not rule out crime, but insufficient to specify criminal act. The report went to the Santa Clara County DA and was confirmed archive. All evidence, sweater, rope, broken soda bottle, scene photos, interrogation files, was repackaged in 4 sealed brown paper bags, labeled case hash 5548. Each bag noted collection date, handler name, Reed's signature, internal inventory code. They were moved to the San Jose Police Evidence Warehouse, a small brick building behind headquarters, holding hundreds of other unresolved cases. That day, paper file copies were sequentially numbered and stored in administration. Reed requested status quo in case reopening. He also submitted a separate internal report to superiors stressing indirect monitoring of the 3 interrogated youths. Without legal basis, it was not approved. By year's end, local news stopped mentioning Billy Parker. The victim's family still sent inquiry letters, but the department could only reply with standard notice, file maintained as open investigation, no new results. Reed, after nearly a year on the case, added a final line to his duty log. No progress. Victim missing without trace. Possible abduction. Possible death, but unprovable. Early December 1956, the investigation's chief signed the decision to file under cold case, unsolved, investigation suspended until new developments. File hash 5548A and the 4 evidence bags were transferred to the long-term storage of the San Jose Police Department. The facility was in the basement of the old building on Mission Street, damp air, dim lights, rows of wooden shelves packed with unsolved missing persons, murders, and robberies. Each box was numbered and labeled by year. Among hundreds of abandoned cases, the Billy Parker file was just a small folder, lying quietly in slot 12 of shelf D4. From 1957 onward, the boy's name nearly vanished from annual reports. Reed was reassigned to another unit, later retired, and the case faded into oblivion. In the 1970s, when the Santa Clara County Police conducted a full inventory of old files, a new team reopened some missing persons cases, including #5548. A young investigator read through all documents, comparing with similar disappearances in the area. He noted the Parker case structure lacked basic data to open new investigative directions and recommended continued storage. Everything was put away again, this time in sealed plastic boxes. In the 1980s, another cold case review was conducted to test new fiber and fingerprint techniques. A forensics technician, opening the evidence bags, noted material degradation, sweater lightly mildewed at the collar, jute rope brittle and faded, dried mud too hard for sampling. Without DNA tools, analysis stopped at visual observation. The 1983 report stated, "Evidence unchanged, unable to extract further. Parker case, no progress." In subsequent years, the file was only periodically checked during inventories, then returned to its spot. A few surviving witnesses in Willow Glen passed away one by one. The Knights of Columbus Hall manager died in 1979. Some of Billy's classmates left the state or no longer clearly recalled the event. File information thus lost cross-verification value. By the early 2000s, when evidence management shifted to digital, #5548 still existed only on paper, not entered due to lack of digitization. In the 2008 Santa Clara County Statistical Report, Parker was listed among 143 pre-1960 unsolved disappearances, noted no new leads. Decades passed. Old evidence bags gathered dust, ink on labels faded, sealing paper yellowed. No one remembered exactly who last handled the case. In the evidence warehouse log, only a blue fountain pen note remained. Case #5548A, permanent storage, recheck upon digitization program. And for over 6 decades, no one reopened that box. Until early 2021, the San Jose Police Department officially launched Cold Case Digitization, a large-scale project to scan, classify, and digitize all unsolved cases before 1980. The goal was to input old data into the Central Electronic Management System, enabling cross-referencing with modern identification and DNA testing technology. Over 300 file boxes were moved from old storage to a temporary inventory area in the new headquarters basement on West Mission. Among the assigned technicians, Maria Delgado, 35, archivist and imaging specialist, handled files coded 50 to 60, covering 1950s incidents. While scanning and cross-checking catalogs, she noticed a small box mislabeled 5622B, but beneath the old cloth tape label, faded text read, Case 5548A, Parker Billy. Delgado checked the log, searched the electronic catalog, and realized the case had never been digitized. She reported to the inventory team leader, then opened the box to assess evidence condition. Inside, 4 brown paper bags remained carefully sealed, red wax intact, signature faded but readable as T. Reed. On the labels, handwritten text had dulled, evidence, green sweater, jute rope glass fragments, scene photos. Delgado opened each bag under 2 other archivists' supervision for imaging and damage check. The green sweater was still there, fabric darkened by time but not rotted. The nearly 1-meter jute rope wrapped in old newspaper, dry and brittle but intact. She noted preservation better than average for the era. Under UV light, Delgado saw fine gray dust on the sweater, possibly containing epithelial cells. She photographed all evidence in high resolution, reassigned the original case number, applied new standard labels and QR codes for access. The interim project report stated, Case #5548A ed, evidence intact, never biologically analyzed, recommend transfer to forensics for DNA testing. After approval, Delgado contacted the State Forensics Lab in Sacramento, California's most advanced DNA facility. Late March 2021, the sweater and rope samples were resealed in moisture-proof containers, transported by secure vehicle to the lab. There, experts received them, documented chain of custody, cross-referenced Reed's original signature with archives for legality. Upon handover, Delgado noted in her work log, Case 5548, A potential biological data recovery, evidence never DNA tested. With the first samples sent, the file thought dormant for over 60 years was officially reactivated in the San Jose Police investigation system. While samples went to the Sacramento Forensics Lab, the cold case digitization tech team in San Jose continued processing #5548A's accompanying images. Their task was to scan all 1955 negatives and scene photos for digital storage, enabling comparison with current topography. Among over 20 negatives in the old envelope, most were faded but still showed familiar details. Lincoln Stadium fence, wet grass, green sweater on the ground. However, when the imaging technician cross-referenced original report notes, an anomaly appeared. In one panoramic corner shot of the fence area, the front of a dark-colored car was clearly visible parked near the exit, with a Chevrolet Impala hood emblem. Delgado enlarged it, identifying a 1958 Impala model, completely illogical since the line was produced 3 years after the disappearance. She rechecked all negatives, finding at least 3 others from the same angle with the same car. For certainty, the team compared exhaust, headlights, and body lines with General Motors' technical docs from the era, concluding no such Impala could exist in 1955. Delgado immediately filed an internal memo, flagging severe timeline discrepancy, and reported to the project leader. A follow-up review was conducted the same day. They rechecked Lieutenant Thomas Reed's original description, scene empty, no vehicles parked near evidence area. Thus, the car's presence couldn't belong to the initial time. The tech team concluded high likelihood the negatives were replaced or reshot during a later re-examination. For verification, Delgado accessed the old photo warehouse inventory log, tracing numbers on each film roll. The label on the Parker photo box noted the film was reprocessed in 1974, nearly 20 years after the original, with signature Lieutenant G. Morris. The name didn't appear in 1955 reports, but personnel data showed George Morris was Reed's contemporary colleague, retired 1979. She immediately notified the project coordination team and sent a summary to the San Jose Police Internal Affairs Office. An independent audit was opened to determine why the photo file was tampered with. Additional documents were pulled from auxiliary storage. The 1974 report stated, due to original photo damage, reshoot scene for training archival purposes. But cross-checking dates, the tech team realized the scene, Morris reshot, no longer existed. The stadium had been renovated, new fence erected, meaning the entire 1974 reconstruction series was not original. Delgado included this in the official report, recommending review of all files signed by Lieutenant Morris from 1970-1975 to assess discrepancy scope. Ultimately, the interim internal report concluded the Parker scene photo set contained at least one series shot years after the incident, possibly for illustration or training archival, but mistakenly merged with originals. The directly responsible party in the re-examination report was identified as retired Lieutenant George Morris, who worked in the same unit as Thomas Reed in the late 1950s. This discovery forced the investigation team to open a new review branch to trace the exact origin of the photos and assess their impact on the integrity of file hash 5548. While the San Jose tech team was still addressing discrepancies in the scene photos, news from the Sacramento Forensics Lab arrived as a preliminary report. After nearly 3 weeks of analysis, the DNA testing team led by Dr. Karen Chu successfully extracted a small amount of biological material from the jute rope sealed in file hash 5548. The sample came from the frayed end of the old rope, where dust, soil, and microscopic skin flakes adhered. Using next-generation DNA sequencing technology, the lab isolated an incomplete but sufficient cellular chain to determine gender and basic genetic markers. Analysis confirmed the DNA source was male, not matching any reference data in California's CODIS database. However, when cross-referencing through the extended familial genetic database, the system returned a partial match with a civilian record registered in Oregon from the Brown family line, specifically a distant relative of one Edward Brown, born 1938, still living. The interim report noted, likelihood of direct or close blood relation to sample 97.4%. This discovery was immediately forwarded to the San Jose Police Department for identity verification. Maria Delgado, handling file digitization, coordinated with the cold case unit to retrieve old residency data and found Edward Brown's name on the 1955 Lincoln High student list, same school as Billy Parker. Civil records confirmed Brown left California in the early 1960s, currently residing in Eugene, Oregon. Cross-referencing original archives, Lieutenant Reed had interrogated a matching name and age during the initial investigation, but lacked evidence to proceed. From these facts, police confirmed this was the individual from the trio last seen with the victim. To rule out error, Sacramento Forensics conducted a second analysis using a control sample from the sweater to verify DNA chain stability. Results reaffirmed the rope-extracted gene sequence matched the Oregon citizen Brown family profile, statistical reliability over 99%. The official 23-page report was sent to San Jose in late April 2021, signed by Dr. Xu. In the conclusion, she stated, DNA on jute rope belongs to a male individual with close blood relation to a person surnamed Brown, confirmed residing in San Jose in 1955. Upon receipt, the cold case unit held an emergency meeting. The forensics representative reviewed the full testing process, confirming proper sample preservation and no cross-contamination. Lead investigator Sergeant Robert Chang proposed reactivating #5548A as an official investigation and contacting Oregon police for coordination. Civil records located Edward Brown's current address in suburban Eugene, living with his elderly wife and son. Per immigration data, he left San Jose in 1960, worked for a long-haul trucking company, then retired. This was entered into the identity verification report sent to the San Jose police chief. In notes, Chang stated, based on DNA results, identity and residency matching the suspect interrogated in the 1955 Billy Parker case, recommend reopening file, summoning Edward Brown to clarify origin of matching genetic material on evidence. Approval was signed that day. Forensics retained originals and sent digital gene sequence copies to investigators. San Jose police issued an internal notice reactivating #5548A, changing status from cold case to active review. After 66 years, Billy Parker's disappearance had its first biologically confirmed link to an involved individual. May 2021, immediately after DNA results were confirmed, a summons was sent to Edward Brown's residence in suburban Eugene, Oregon. He was then 83, frail, living with his elderly wife in a small wooden house near the forest edge. 2 San Jose investigators flew in, coordinating with local police for the interrogation. The initial meeting occurred at the Eugene police station in a private room, with a public defender and a recording clerk present. At first, Brown appeared calm, claiming he didn't know why he was called, suggesting probably a file mix-up. When presented with DNA results showing familial traces matching the rope recovered from the Billy Parker scene, his expression changed markedly. He fell silent for a long time, then sighed and whispered, "I knew this day would come." The interrogation then shifted to an official statement. Brown confirmed that on the night Billy vanished, he was with Walter Sloan and Michael Ferrer at the Knights of Columbus Hall dance. The 3 left before the event ended and encountered Billy outside the parking lot. Walter started talking, Brown stated. He said Billy had been acting up lately and wanted to teach him a lesson. There's account the conflict stemmed from trivial school matters. Sloan believed Billy talked trash to his girlfriend. Leaving the lot, the group invited Billy for a quick ride and drop-off, and he agreed. Brown described Sloan's dark Chevrolet, two-door, large trunk. They drove around a few blocks, then stopped at an empty lot behind Lincoln Stadium. Sloan said he wanted to scare the kid once and be done, so he took jute rope from the trunk and loosely tied Billy's hands behind his back. Furr held the flashlight, while Brown sat in the back seat. "I thought it was just a prank," he said. "We tied lightly, then Sloan opened the trunk and said to put him in for a few minutes." Brown recounted that when Billy was placed in the trunk, he was still yelling, but they thought it was temporary. The group then drove off, circling to suburban Los Gatos, where an old inactive power plant stood. They stopped to drink beer and listen to car radio music, planning to return in half an hour to release the boy. When they came back, Sloan opened the trunk and Billy lay still, unresponsive. Brown's voice trembled. Walter shook his shoulder, then said, "He's dead." I didn't believe it, but when I touched him, he was ice cold. I knew it was out of control. The three panicked, quickly discussed, and decided not to call police. Sloan drove to the old Los Gatos power plant they had just visited, and found an abandoned warehouse in the back. There, on soft ground, they used a shovel from the trunk to dig a shallow hole. Billy's body was placed in, still bound, then covered with soil and industrial debris. Brown said he took newspaper from the car to cover the boy's face, because I couldn't look anymore. They then drove back to downtown, stopped at a gas station to wash mud off the tires, and discarded the remaining rope. Further wanted to go home immediately, while Sloan warned the others, never mention this again. When asked why he stayed silent for decades, Brown bowed his head, voice hoarse. "I was scared. Walter was aggressive then. I was only 17. He threatened if I spoke, I'd be next in the ground." He admitted carrying lifelong guilt, but never thought he'd be found. The interrogation transcript was fully recorded, witnessed by the attorney and 2 investigators. Police asked Brown to pinpoint the burial location. He described from memory, drive south from San Jose about 10 miles, through a small forest, to a dirt road into the abandoned power plant. Behind, with old tin-roofed warehouses, between 2 walls, a sunken soil area where they dug. Investigators cross-referenced the description with Los Gatos maps and noted projected coordinates. Finally, Brown signed the transcript, confirming all statements true and voluntarily provided. After signing, he sat quietly, then whispered, "I've been silent too long. That's enough now." The transcript was stamped, sequentially numbered under original file hash 5548A, and sent to San Jose Police, with full audio and video recordings for scene verification. 1 week after Edward Brown's statement was recorded, the San Jose Police forensics team coordinated with the Los Gatos Town Police Unit to survey the old power plant, he described. The area was on the southern edge of the valley, abandoned for over half a century, now surrounded by weeds and rusted iron fencing. The main plant structure consisted only of bare concrete foundations and a few rows of corroded tin-roofed warehouses. Investigators brought 1955 topographic maps and Brown's description to pinpoint the location. After measurements, they marked an area behind the second warehouse row where the ground dipped slightly and grass grew patchy, matching the between 2 tin walls detail in the statement. Before excavation, the forensics tech team deployed ground-penetrating radar to scan the roughly 200 square meter zone. After multiple cross-scans, the screen showed an anomalous void about 90 centimeters deep under cracked concrete, sized like a small grave. Strong return signals indicated hard objects mixed in the soil. An on-site report was immediately sent to the team commander. The next morning, official excavation began. The area was cordoned with tape, tents erected for shade, and artificial lighting set up for continuous work. Technicians in protective gear used small tools to avoid damaging evidence. As the concrete broke away, the underlying soil turned distinctly dark brown compared to surroundings, indicating prior disturbance. After nearly 2 hours, a piece of green fabric emerged from the damp earth. The excavation team paused, photographed, logged the position, and continued removing the thin mud layer. Gradually, the clear outline of a small body appeared, a human skeleton lying on its side, hands still bound behind the back, with rotted but intact jute rope loops. Below the feet was a single shoe, rubber sole worn, matching the Parker family's description. Nearby, forensics recovered a second broken rope segment and a green sweater scrap still with the collar, though the fabric had degraded over time. The entire scene was documented in detail with photos, video, and 3D digital mapping. The remains were collected per standard protocol, placed in tagged, time-coded, specialized bags. Surrounding soil samples were taken for comparison, along with fabric and rope pieces. All evidence was transferred to the Sacramento Forensics Lab, which had previously DNA tested the 1955 original rope sample. Within 2 weeks, results were sent to San Jose. The bone samples matched 100% with DNA stored from Billy Parker's comb, provided by the family to police in the 1980s during a voluntary biological archiving program. The report concluded, remains are of victim Billy Parker, missing 1955. Additionally, fiber structure comparison showed the binding rope in the grave matched type and size with the jute rope from Walter Sloan's car trunk. The criminalistics unit also confirmed the recovered sweater had the same weave, size, and handwritten label as described in Lieutenant Thomas Reed's original report. On June 24, 2021, San Jose Police held an internal press briefing announcing excavation results and victim identity verification. The official report stated, physical evidence and DNA testing confirmed victim Billy Parker died from binding and burial at the Los Gatos power plant. Based on witness Edward Brown's statement details and scene traces, the case is reclassified from missing persons to kidnapping resulting in death. At headquarters, file hash 5548A was reopened, with a new margin note, reclassified, Homicide Investigation 2021. With scientific evidence and verified location, a disappearance forgotten for 66 years was now a complete criminal case, paving the way for the next phase of accountability. Immediately after DNA results were released, and the Billy Parker file reclassified as a criminal case, the San Jose Police Department began preparing arrest plans for the 2 remaining suspects named in Edward Brown's statement, Walter Sloan, 82, and Michael Ferrer, 81. Both currently lived in California, Sloan in Modesto and Ferrer in Fresno, both retired with no criminal records for decades. Based on Brown's detailed confession, DNA matches between the scene binding rope and evidence from Sloan's 1955 car, and forensic conclusion that Billy Parker's cause of death was asphyxiation from being bound and confined in a closed space. The Santa Clara County DA approved arrest warrants and charges of kidnapping resulting in death and obstruction of justice. July 12, 2021, at 7 a.m. San Jose Police coordinated with local units for simultaneous arrests. In Modesto, Sloan's home was in a quiet residential area where he lived with his wife of many years. When police knocked, he answered in frail health, offering no resistance. The arrest warrant was read aloud, stating charges related to the 1955 Billy Parker disappearance. Sloan remained silent, his gaze dropping upon hearing the name. At the same time in Fresno, another team approached Michael Ferrer's home. He was sitting on the porch, informed of the warrant, and asked to cooperate. Ferrer appeared confused, repeatedly asking, "That was over 60 years ago," but complied and was taken to the station for questioning. Both were transported to San Jose the same day in secure vehicles, accompanied by medical personnel due to age. At San Jose Police Headquarters, an emergency press conference was held that afternoon. Investigative Agency Representative, Chief Linda Chavez, confirmed to the media, "After 66 years, we have sufficient physical evidence and witness statements to close the Billy Parker disappearance. The primary suspects were arrested this morning. This is one of the longest cold cases in department history, solved using modern DNA technology. Behind the podium, a whiteboard read in large letters, 1955 cold case solved. During detention, the two suspects were questioned separately. Walter Sloan stayed silent most of the time, only briefly saying he didn't want to say anything wrong with memory faded. When asked about the jute rope and Chevrolet, he didn't deny but said everyone had similar rope in their trunk back then. In contrast, Michael Ferrer appeared more fearful. He admitted being with Sloan and Brown at the dance, but denied participating in binding or hiding Billy's body, saying he only knew something was wrong after Sloan returned to the car panicked. All statements were recorded and added to the supplemental file. Santa Clara County DA Rachel Lee held a meeting with the investigative team to finalize the prosecution file. The preliminary indictment exceeded 40 pages, listing the evidence chain, Edward Brown's voluntary statement, DNA testing, confirming scene sample match with Sloan's car evidence, excavation confirming burial location per description, and indirect evidence of concealment. Based on this, the county court approved pretrial detention for both defendants pending the initial hearing. News of the arrests quickly spread across local and statewide media. Outlets called it a miracle of science and persistence, praising the San Jose cold case team's efforts. Articles in the Santa Clara Tribune and the Mercury News republished old photos of Billy Parker alongside black and white images of the three youths questioned in 1955. With headlines, "Justice after 66 years, 3 teen boys from back then, now only 2 left to answer to the law." Internally, at the police department, the Parker case file was marked Solved 2021 and selected as a model case for cold case investigation training. Chief Chavez sent a thank you notice to the technicians who discovered and restored the evidence, especially Maria Delgado, the first to spot the file code error and recover the original data. In the summary report to the State Department of Justice, she wrote, "Advances in DNA science and decades of careful archiving have brought the truth back to light. Though justice came late, it came." That same evening, in the department's records room, a new update was entered into the central electronic system, case hash 5548A, status solved. Suspects in custody. The disappearance of Billy Parker, once forgotten for over half a century, was now officially recognized as a kidnapping resulting in death, with the last 2 involved individuals in custody. December 2021, the Billy Parker missing person, 1955 case was officially brought to trial at the Santa Clara County Superior Court, closing over 66 years since the victim vanished. Courtroom 3 in the old brick building on North First Street was packed from early morning reporters, former investigators, law students, and San Jose residents who had heard of the case through the press. Before the bench, the 2 defendants, Walter Sloan, 82, and Michael Ferrer, 81, sat in the front row, silver-haired, hands trembling slightly. Sloan, gaunt and silent, stared only at the table, while Ferrer occasionally turned to his defense attorney, face full of worry. Santa Clara County DA Rachel Lee opened with a concise but heavy indictment. In 1955, a 15-year-old boy was kidnapped, bound and locked in a car trunk by 3 older youths. He suffocated, and his body was buried to hide the crime. Today, we stand here to give voice to one silenced for 66 years. The prosecution's presentation lasted many days, organizing evidence in investigative sequence. First was the DNA results. The male gene sequence from the 1955 scene, jute rope, matched the familial profile of Edward Brown, one of the last 3 in contact with the victim. Next were ground-penetrating radar images showing a void under the concrete at the Los Gatos power plant, exactly where Brown said the body was buried. Excavation photos were projected on a large screen, the small skeleton, green sweater, wrist-binding rope, all confirmed by Billy Parker's DNA results. Lee presented Edward Brown's interrogation transcript. He had voluntarily cooperated with the investigation and testified for the prosecution. Brown was not a defendant due to immunity under the agreement in exchange for full truth in court. In his testimony, his voice shook. "We didn't mean to kill Billy. Walter just wanted to scare him. When we opened the trunk, Billy wasn't breathing. I stayed silent my whole life out of fear. But he didn't deserve to be forgotten like that." Brown's words left the courtroom in dead silence. The prosecution continued with the original 1955 evidence: the green sweater, jute rope, and broken soda bottle, all still preserved in brown paper bags signed by Lieutenant Thomas Reed, the first investigator. The evidence's continuous existence over 6 decades was verified by warehouse logs, proving chain of custody. Facing these documents and testimony, the defense team for Sloan and Ferrer focused rebuttals on 2 main angles: time and memory. They argued the incident was too long ago, making witness memories faded and prone to error. They also pointed out that evidence, though well preserved, risked contamination or mix-up due to changing storage protocols across generations. Sloan's attorney claimed a man over 80 cannot be tried on others' memories, and that no evidence proves Sloan intended to cause death. Ferrer's attorney stressed his client did not directly participate in binding or hiding the body, and if present, was only along for the ride, not active. Ferrer testified he only knew something bad happened when it was too late, and wanted to tell, but no one would believe a 16-year-old. The prosecution countered by citing Brown's statement, affirming all 3 were at the scene and jointly decided not to call police. The cross-examination lasted nearly 3 weeks, with over 20 witnesses called, including forensics experts, DNA technicians, and participants in the 1955 search. Many elderly, including descendants of Lieutenant Thomas Reed, attended to witness the case their ancestors couldn't close. On sentencing day, the courtroom was packed. Presiding Judge Margaret Hill read the jury's verdict after 2 days of deliberation. The decision was brief, but firm. The jury finds defendant Walter Sloan guilty of kidnapping resulting in death, with unintentional factors but concealment after the fact. Defendant Michael Ferrer lacks sufficient evidence for conviction, acquitted. Murmurs spread through the room. Sloan sat motionless, no expression, while Ferrer bowed his head. Tears falling upon hearing, not guilty. D.A. Lee requested a lighter sentence due to the defendant's age and the incident's antiquity, but still criminal accountability. Ultimately, Judge Hill sentenced Walter Sloan to 20 years probation under lifelong judicial supervision and forfeiture of inheritance rights upon death. Edward Brown received full immunity per the cooperation agreement and was credited for aiding the resolution. As the trial ended, Judge Hill stated, "The court cannot reverse time or resurrect the lost, but justice, though late, still holds its value." Outside, the late December San Jose sky was cold and gray. Reporters crowded the courthouse steps, reporting the verdict seen as closing one of America's oldest cold cases. In the court's electronic file, the case was updated to final status, case hash 5548A, kidnapping resulting in death. Convicted Sloan, acquitted Ferrer, closed 2021. With the verdict officially announced and the Billy Parker file updated to closed 2021. The San Jose Police Department held a multi-hour internal debrief to evaluate the entire 66-year investigation. From a disappearance filed as insufficient data, the case had passed through generations of officers, investigative technique changes, and shifts in the U.S. legal system. In the over 200-page report submitted to the California Department of Justice, the process was meticulously documented, from Billy Parker's rainy night 1955 vanishing, to the search, initial evidence, Lieutenant Thomas Reed's impasse. Then decades of silence until DNA technology and the file digitization project pulled the case back into the light. The report opened with, "This is not just a solved case, but a lesson in investigative patience and the value of archival science." Per statistics, over 66 years, file hash 5548A underwent 7 inventories, 4 re-reviews, 2 warehouse transfers, but was never lost. a factor seen as the foundation for revival. Archivists affirmed that without the 1955 standard sealing of the sweater and rope, 21st-century DNA extraction would have been nearly impossible. Lieutenant Reed's meticulous signing, evidence coding, and paper bag preservation inadvertently protected the items from moisture or chemical damage, a rudimentary process then, but the lifeline for modern technology decades later. The second decisive factor emphasized was the advancement of DNA technology. Next-generation gene sequencing not only restored genetic material from extremely small samples, but also enabled comparison with extended familial databases. As a result, the DNA sequence on the jute rope was identified for the first time, leading to tracing Edward Brown, a link overlooked for 60 years. Experts consider this a prime example of modern forensic technology's value in decoding seemingly dead cold cases. The report also acknowledged the pivotal role of the cold case digitization project, launched in 2021 as part of the San Jose Police Department's innovation strategy. The project not only digitized old files, but also reviewed, standardized storage codes, and detected classification errors. It was during this process that technician Maria Delgado discovered the mislabeled evidence envelope and brought the Parker case back into investigators' view. At the debrief meeting, the chief recognized Delgado with a special commendation, describing her work as a seemingly small act that opened an entire new chapter of justice. Additionally, the cold case investigative team was commended for effective coordination across agencies, from Sacramento Forensics, Santa Clara Prosecution, to Los Gatos Police. Interagency cooperation was seen as a model for multi-generational investigations. A city police department initiated, a state forensics lab handled technical aspects, and a county court delivered the final verdict. In the report to the State Department of Justice office, a standout underlined comment read, "Cooperation and file continuity are the sole guarantees that justice is not lost to time." February 2022, the San Jose Police Department publicly released the project summary. Results showed that through digitization, 42 other cold cases with sufficient data were reopened for review, with 11 undergoing DNA analysis and 4 identifying unnamed victims. The project expanded statewide with federal funding, targeting over 3,000 unsolved cases in the next decade. The Billy Parker case thus became a representative example cited in professional conferences and forensic investigation training. The California Institute of Criminology report called it a cross-generational justice restoration, where every link, from the first officer, archivist, DNA scientist, to prosecutor, contributed to completing the final picture. Lectures at the State Police Academy used Parker as an example of evidence preservation, archival discipline, and interagency communication importance. The case's impact extended beyond operations. It also changed public perception of cold case. Many local newspapers wrote that a case only truly dies when people stop caring. The Parker family, with no first-generation members still alive, was invited to a city-organized memorial. On the podium, an enlarged old photo of Billy, in his Lincoln High uniform, stood beside a replica of the green sweater. Below the photo, simple text, "Justice finds its way." In investigative circles, Parker became an ethical reminder: no case is too old to abandon, and no evidence too small to preserve. The San Jose Police Department established a historical evidence archive center, naming the main room Reed Archive Room, honoring Lieutenant Thomas Reed, who first signed the 1955 evidence bags. At the opening, the chief stated, "If Mr. Reed hadn't followed protocol in an era without sufficient science, we wouldn't have this outcome today." Justice sometimes begins with a careful signature. The following year, the National Institute of Forensic Science published an analysis of over 200 DNA-solved cold cases. Parker was listed first under impact of long-term evidence preservation. Many states adopted San Jose's protocol as a model, especially combining DNA data with genealogy programs. For young investigators, Parker was not just an old case story, but proof that time cannot erase truth if evidence is protected. They saw in each yellowed file page traces of persistence, Reed's faded signature, the 1956 cold case ink stamp, the 2021 DNA report, and finally the solved status line. In the Santa Clara prosecution's final report, Rachel Lee wrote, "No one wins in this case, only a truth found and a promise kept. Our legal system isn't perfect, but if the people in it keep searching, justice endures." When a local TV program aired the special The Parker Case, 66 Years to Justice, thousands of viewers wrote to the department thanking their dedication. One resident wrote, "We couldn't save a boy in 1955, but we can save the honor of an entire generation of police." December 2022, at City Hall, the San Jose Police Department awarded honor medals to investigators and technicians involved. Maria Delgado, who rediscovered the file, spoke briefly at the ceremony. "I just did my job, but this case taught me that sometimes just reopening an old box can let a voice from the past be heard again." The final report ended with a simple sentence, "Justice may be delayed, but it is never forgotten." Those words were later engraved on a brass plaque at the department's Archive Center entrance, a permanent reminder that justice, even after half a century, can still find its way back. The story of the Billy Parker case, a boy missing in 1955, found after 66 years, is not just the journey of solving a cold file, but a reflection of enduring values in modern American society: persistence, faith in justice, and the power of science. In today's America, where technology advances so rapidly that people sometimes forget the roots of trust and responsibility, this case reminds us that justice doesn't come on its own. It is built step by step, from the smallest careful act. Lieutenant Thomas Reed's meticulous 1955 sealing of evidence bags with paper, signing and coding, seemingly simple, enabled later generations to uncover the truth through his professional integrity. In a society demanding speed and instant results, it teaches that care and honesty in work, however small, hold lasting value. Technician Maria Delgado's patient 2021 review of each file box, spotting the code error, and reviving a buried case, exemplifies the never-give-up spirit America. Honors from archivist to investigator, anyone can drive change. From this story, the lesson for modern life is clear. In any field, law, technology, or daily life, success and justice come not from luck, but from integrity, persistence, and human collaboration. Today's America can learn from the Parker case that no matter how long time stretches, truth will find its way back, as long as we remain patient and keep searching. Thank you for joining us on this over 60-year journey to find justice for Billy Parker, a testament that the truth never vanishes. Subscribe to the channel to continue with us in the next stories, where each cold case reignites faith that justice, though late, will still be served.